Your sister or your best female friend has called to share some amazing news. He finally proposed. Oh, joy. How delightful. After all these years, all those hints, all that talk, all those promises, he's finally gonna deliver. And he has presented a fabulous ring. What a lucky girl. What a lucky girl. That man who recently borrowed $15,000 from her to pay his debts and to give their family a fresh start, he purchased her a $10,000 ring. Strange, isn't it? Because that same man also recently won a big settlement. And in that settlement, he received $20,000. That same man who got his settlement money and got himself a new car, he's eager to set down roots with her. Strange, there's been no mention of that $15,000 that he borrowed. But it's okay, 'cause he's gotten her that ring, that $10,000 ring. And of course, the rest of that money, the winnings, and the balance on that loan, well, that's all going to go towards paying off his debt so he can set down a strong foundation for their family. Minus, of course, the cost of that truck and the celebration dinner after the engagement was announced. So happy for her. Are you? I'm not. She's looking at a world of trouble headed straight ahead as she walks down that aisle and says, I do. So, this little game we played, the man who made the big proposal, the man who took money but had plenty of opportunity to give it back, the man who made big promises and a flashy show, all under the guise of it's gonna be better for us both. That man reminds me of the President of the United States and the lady in question. That, of course, would be the American people who buy in to the bullshit of Trump accounts. Yes, darlings, over the 4th of July weekend, the President of the United States announced that Trump accounts were finally here, providing a whopping $1,000. So, let's take a look. My name is the lovely Ray, and I was born and raised in the U.S. I currently have the opportunity to speak with people from all over the world. Regular people just like you. And I'm always fascinated by our cultural differences and similarities. This podcast is voiced in the style of the sultry sounding 1955 weather girl. It is a collection of thoughts inspired by my global conversations and aims to invite you to have those hard conversations out loud and with others. Thanks for stopping by, darlings. I'd love to chat. Let's read from a little summary article on iHeartRadio. According to the U.S. Department of Treasury, parents, guardians, or otherwise authorized individuals can open a Trump account. Ooh, you get to open an account, officially called a 530A account, for any child under 18 who is a U.S. citizen with a valid Social Security number. My friends, this of course means that those illegal aliens won't be able to open an account. Staying true to promise, making sure we put Americans first. Good job. Babies born from January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2028. That's a babies born during a 3-year period? Okay. What happens after 2028? Do those kids get anything? Oh, well, those babies, they will automatically receive the $1,000 seed deposit from the Treasury once an account is opened. In the child's name, of course. Older children under 18 can also have accounts open for them, but they will not receive the initial government deposit. But your child can still have an account. You just better be the one to put the money in. Okay, now, initially, this looks like a nice idea. I mean, anytime the government's giving out money, people get excited. Tax refunds, yeah, they're giving me back what they owe me. However, Americans fail to really look at other countries where there's no such thing as tax refunds. The government simply calculates what the taxes are and they take it. That's it. No filing deadlines or complicated paperwork. It's simply, this is how much you'll need to pay in taxes, and we'll deduct that throughout the year. If we didn't take enough, we'll let you know. Simple. Darlings, for a White House that seems to have managed to put on a UFC fight on the White House lawn and go about challenging any number of pieces of legislature that support the rights of those born in the U.S. or being an undocumented immigrant in the U.S. for an administration that has used tons of legal expertise in order to do many, many things, some of which we may question whether or not are good. I just am baffled by the fact that that same administration doesn't seem to be able to get the little things right. The little things that matter to the American people. Instead of arguing about whether or not their currently protected immigrants should be allowed to maintain their protection, maybe instead of dismantling the EPA or the Department of Education, could we not put just a little bit of effort into fixing the IRS website and making it a hell of a lot easier for Americans to navigate. Maybe we could pass legislation so that Americans no longer have to rack their brains to file taxes by an April deadline, but instead the entire system is overhauled and the government says, you don't need to file this W-4 paperwork or fill out a 1099. We have worked it out where we know automatically right up front how much you owe. And we're gonna take that up front. You don't have to worry about anything. You don't have to worry about whether or not you've been honest on your paperwork or whether or not you understood the paperwork. We got you. Wouldn't that be lovely? But it's not just the current administration that has failed to solve this problem. Because previous administrations have done nothing about it either. The previous administration was focused on eradicating educational debt. Those student loans be gone. And I, for one, said why. Removing those student loans, as popular as the idea is, and as much as I wouldn't have minded being alleviated of the remaining $37,000 that I owe, removing those student loans does not help the vast majority of Americans who took out bank loans. And it doesn't educate young people who are the target of said loans about how to manage money and how to really determine what they can afford for student loans. Because you see, if you have school counselors pushing these loans upon young people, telling them it's free, you won't have to pay it back for a long time, or go for that college, just take a loan. Once you get a job, you'll be able to pay it back. Our college graduates are struggling to find jobs that will allow them to pay their loans in a time they deem adequate. Of course, many people don't want to reduce their spending on brunch with friends, but that's what buy now and pay later is for, right? Yes, you see, darlings, these plans to give us all $1,000, that same energy could have been spent elsewhere. But let's accept tax code not fixed, taxes not fixed. And so let's place this in the same realm as what other countries do. So in Turkey, newlywed young women can receive money from the government. It's not a huge sum, but you have that right. You're married, and especially if you do not have a father who is alive, this money can be helpful. And in many countries, there are incentives tied to starting a family. You have more than one child, you'll get a certain sum of money. China does this. Turkey does this. Many countries do this. You have at least 3 children. Ooh. The benefits are quite extraordinary in South Korea. You get priority for housing. You get reduce taxes, you get access to so much that your single child or two-child friends just don't get. So, isn't America just finally becoming a player in that realm? Are we not just finally saying, hey, we too will recognize those who have chosen to help our country grow by starting a family? There's a few problems with that. You see, in the US, parents don't really get a credit for their children, a tax credit. They already pay less taxes. So, if this $1,000 is to help the youngins, let's just accept it at face value. Let's just say, lovely, it's already passed. Maybe the United States government isn't breaking any new ground here by offering this money, but it is offering the money. So can't we just celebrate that? Can't we just say that there is the potential to do good here? Okay, darlings, I'll ride with you. But hold on, because I want to talk about these accounts. Are you ready? Let's do it. So, these accounts, you have to have the $1,000 invested in all funds, not just part of it, not $999. All funds must be invested in low-cost U.S. stock index funds with annual fees capped at 0.1%. And those accounts will be managed by Bank of New York Mellon. There's one bank that's offering these accounts. Seems a bit strange to me. That doesn't seem like capitalism at all, to have one bank manage these accounts. Why are these accounts available through many different banks, through many financial platforms, so that the largest number of Americans can create these accounts? Seems like it's a nice benefit for the Bank of New York Mellon. I wonder what the connection is there. Okay. But let's say people flood to this bank's website and they open these accounts. Now, if you're not a parent, then you know, or you may not realize, that having a child is expensive. Perhaps you've heard friends complain about this. And if you are a parent, then you know that having a child or having children can be quite costly. So, that $1,000, well, good thing you can't spend it right away, because it wouldn't even buy enough formula and diapers for 2 months. Formula, diapers, clothes, barely a month if you buy all the cheapest things. That's not very good. But let's stay focused, lovely, because it can't be sent. It must be invested. Okay, so it's invested. The average American doesn't know anything about investing, doesn't trust the stock market, doesn't invest. The population that would actually find $1,000 to be life-changing, extremely beneficial, those people probably aren't investing to begin with. And if they are, they know that the market goes up and down. And so I ran some numbers. Because you see, that $1,000, it's considered seed money. And families will be able to contribute. Let's see here. Families, employers, and even charitable organizations can contribute up to $5,000 in after-tax dollars per year. Wow. You can contribute $5,000 a year, you lucky ducky. Okay. Let's start from the bottom, shall we? Let's say you are a family. You have a child. You open that account. Somehow you figure out how to do it. And your child now has $1,000 in that account. For the lowest income family, you are not able to contribute to that account. Or maybe you just don't trust it. You don't trust the market. Or maybe you don't even know that you can contribute. You just know you've got your $1,000 and you've done what they told you in terms of invested it. We do hope there's some system that lets people know to invest the money in low-cost index funds. No, they can't just run out and buy some Tesla shares. That's not how this works. Okay, so if nothing's invested, well, that $1,000 over 18 years, because you can't withdraw early, your child has a medical emergency, or they graduate early and they're ready for college, you can't withdraw that money early. You can't touch it until they're 18. Well, that's when they can touch it. And at a modest interest rate of 6%, with absolutely nothing being added to the account. And I say modest interest rate because we are adjusting for stock market fluctuations over an 18-year period. So we got an average here. That graduating 18-year-old will have $2,854. Less than $3,000. Go start your life, 18-year-old. I gift upon you less than $3,000. Mind you, at one point, Trump had talked about giving $1,000 so that everyone could, instead of health insurance, instead of government-provided health insurance, let's just give you some money. People who are going into financial ruin over medical bills are not trying to figure out how to pay $1,000 medical bill. More like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. That's what's crippling people. Parents who are trying to figure out how their child is going to get into college. Parents who are taking out loans on behalf of their children in order to help their child pay for college. Taking out a second mortgage on the house. Treating their homes like bank accounts, like ATMs. Those parents know that they need a lot more than $3,000 to pay for that education. Maybe that's 1 year of community college, $3,000, if it's in state. You're not living on campus, by the way. State school, $3,000. What is that, books? And private university, $3,000. Maybe a deposit on a dorm room. So basically, that child better continue to focus on good grades for the next 18 years. They better pray they get a scholarship, because $3,000. The way kids spend money nowadays, that's a celebratory iPhone, some shopping, and brunch. That's not money to buy a house, to put down a deposit or down payment on a house. That's not money to start a life or even change a life. But I hear you're saying, lovely, these families are supposed to add to the account. Okay. So, families adding to the accounts. Let's look at the maximum, shall we? Looking at the maximum, families can contribute $416 a month for 12 months over 18 years. Okay, well, using that same interest rate, in 18 years, that young person could have $157,000. Now that's a game changer. That might be undergraduate tuition. That might be enough to buy a home. Here's the problem. $416 a month. For the families that didn't have their own $1,000 to begin with, they're not going to have $416 a month to invest over an 18-year period. And you're saying, well, employers can match, charities can match. Okay, so we also have to assume that there's a benefit for employers to want to match, because employers are already contributing to retirement funds. Employers can already contribute to 529 accounts, which is an education-based investment account for young people. Employers are already contributing to flex spending accounts. Employers are contributing a lot already. But here's a new opportunity for them to contribute more. Whereas, if these employers have all this money, wouldn't they just be willingly paying their employees more? But $157,000 would be fabulous. There's another problem, darlings. I'm almost hesitant to talk about this one, though. But, you know me. Never be shy. Never be shy to turn away from the big things. The things that shape us, that change us, the hard things. Because facing them head on, it's so worthwhile in the end. So, a good portion of that money is subject to taxes. After it's withdrawn, Any investment growth, government seed money, or employer contributions are taxable as ordinary income when withdrawn. So, the $90,000 that the parent has contributed over the 18 years, that wouldn't be taxable. But there's $67,000 left, plus the initial $1,000. That's $68,000. And of the $90,000, if the employer had, say, employer match program, employee contributes $200, employer contributes $200. If that were the case, that $90,000, $45,000 would be taxable. $45,000 plus $68,000, we now have over $100,000 that is taxable. That doesn't quite seem fair, does it? Especially when there are 529 accounts that are not subject to these kinds of taxes. I'll share a little more. Because you are under age 59 and a half, withdrawn earnings may, this is all early game, darling, so I'm not 100% sure on this, but it may, according to where things stand now, also trigger an additional 10% early distribution penalty. So you have whatever taxes you were going to pay on that $67,000 to $110,000 plus an extra 10% penalty. So, just 10%. Nothing but a couple of $1,000. Because you're not at the retirement age, or at least approaching retirement soon, when you choose to withdraw that money to use it for education or getting a house. But isn't this administration opposed to higher education, or at least to the institutions that question Trump's legal practices and economic practices and foreign policy practices? And, well, let me go on here. The 10% penalty can be waived if the withdrawal is used for qualified higher education, or up to $10,000 toward a first-time home purchased. Well, if one was actually to come out of this with $157,000, I should hope if you're going to use the money to buy a house, you're buying it outright. So why only $10,000? Have $157,000. Do you see, darlings? Do you see the problem with these accounts? It's not that it's not enough money. It's not that it's coming from Trump. It's coming from those conservatives. No, darling. Economics-wise, it's just not good financial sense. You see, the thing about capitalism is in order for it to work, we must have competition. It's that simple. Free markets and competition are what make the system work. So one could say that these 530 accounts are competition for the 529 accounts, but they're actually not very competitive. And presently there are no additional institutions offering these accounts. Now, looking at a website called How to Pay for College, they have much more conservative figures than I did, and so they're saying $80,000 by retirement. By retirement? Oh, yes. There was that idea of, well, hey, let's just get rid of Social Security and give people $1,000 to start things off with. $80,000 for many of us. That will last maybe a year or two. And then what? And then what do we do? And if you are somebody who isn't in my initial scenario of starting at the bottom, if you are somebody who $1,000 is no big deal, that's what you spend on your kids' sports regularly anyway. Getting this money doesn't change your world. You could easily open a 529 account on your own and invest in whatever funds you like with a stronger return on your investment. Interesting, isn't it? According to howtopayforcollege.com, for education savings, a 529 plan is often more attractive, as long as funds are used for qualified higher education expenses. Growth is completely tax-free. Your $1,000 that grows to $3,500 is worth the full $3,500. Okay, I didn't read early in the article to see where the $3,500 came from, but I'm assuming that's based on not investing in the account or the most modest investment in the account. They may have been using a higher return rate than I was. In my scenario, probably 8%, 10%. For retirement savings, a Roth IRA is typically even more powerful. Qualified withdrawals are entirely tax-free, and contributions can be withdrawn at any time without tax or penalty. Your child needs to pay that school money before they reach the age of 18 because they are 17 and they are going off to college and they have been given a spot in this amazing college. Do they have to wait a year in order to be able to pay? Well, not with a 529 account. Qualified withdrawals are entirely tax-free and contributions can be withdrawn at any time without tax or penalty. While a 530A doesn't require earned income, you can use a 529 strategically and later roll funds into a Roth IRA once your child has earned income, even from babysitting or yard work. There's an opportunity to teach your child about financial literacy with a 529. That is, of course, assuming you are a parent who has financial literacy, who understands investing, who trusts investing, investment accounts, and the stock market, who's willing to go beyond a high-interest savings account. Because there are a good number of Americans who don't even trust the banks, and they think they all are corrupt. So while at face value, the 530A seems to be creating some competition for the 529, the 529 already had other accounts in which people could put their money in. We didn't need a child base or another child base savings opportunity. Is it a savings opportunity? Is it an investment account? What is it exactly? So, I'm going to read this last bit from this website. For example, invest $1,000 in a 529 at birth rate and later roll it into a Roth IRA. You'll have the same $80,000 in the Roth IRA by age 65, and the entire amount will be withdrawn tax-free. For someone in the 22% tax bracket, a taxable $80,000 withdrawal would mean $17,600 in federal taxes, leaving $62,400 before state taxes. Yes, there are many states in the United States that do charge taxes. So with the 529, $80,000, yay! With the 530, $62,400 is yours, assuming you live in a state that is tax-free. So, at the end of the day, you could be winding up with $50,000 of $80,000. Does it seem fair? But what do I know? I'm just a girl living in a man's world. Of course, these boys, they're nothing without us girls. For the young person who chooses not to go to college, maybe they choose a vocational school. Gotta go to professional hairdressing school. Gotta go to automotive school. And this is something the U.S. has been pushing, the return to manufacturing and coal mining. You don't have to have a college education for coal mining. And many manufacturing jobs, many trade schools. What about that money for those applications? If you enter a trade where you learn on the job and you don't have to use that money for education, but the money isn't enough to be the necessary down payment on a house. Or maybe it is enough to be a down payment on the house, but only $10,000 is a down payment on the house, or can be used tax-free for the house. Then you're still paying out taxes. The fact is, these accounts do nothing for education, and they do nothing towards the cost of living in the United States. They do absolutely nothing for the Americans who are currently struggling to buy homes and desperately want to move out of overpriced apartments. The Americans who are working 2 jobs and saving their money with the hopes that they can eradicate their credit card debt, their college debt, their medical debt, and finally be able to afford that trip to Disney for the kids, or just a day at the spa for themselves, a nice dinner out. Doesn't help those people. It doesn't help people who don't have financial literacy. It doesn't require schools to teach them about money. But why on earth would the government want for people to learn about money? Isn't it easier, better, to just trust those in power, to let them do the thinking for us, to let ChatGPT guide us? No, darlings. Americans aren't stupid. But unfortunately, many people have just reached a point where they've lost hope and they simply don't care. but that's how assault works. You oppress your victim to the point where they simply lose hope and they simply don't care. They just want to survive, just want to make it through the least painful way possible. And maybe in the next life, they'll find peace. Of course, abusers know these things. And it's no surprise that this abuse is being perpetrated by a man who is the President of the United States with a track record of assault and abuse, proven not just through history, but by the court of law. Until next time, darlings, it's been lovely to chat.